Headliner Nation, how we doing out there today, guys? I'm your host, Ryan O'Connell. Today, guys, I'm here to talk some conference championship matchups with you today. Obviously, it's a smaller sample size than what we're used to, and the slate is going to be condensed, and the player pool is going to be very small, and there's going to be a lot of overlap, honestly. So there's a couple ways we're going to want to differentiate ourselves from the rest of the pack. Now, the general public, they're going to be able to come in here and pick all the big name players, and they're not going to succeed, basically. We're going to separate ourselves by, number one, we're going to pick smaller tournaments. That way our lineups are unique and differentiate from the rest of the people in that tournament. Because if you get in a tournament that has 2,000 people in it, the likelihood that they have the same lineup as you or me or anyone else definitely increases because the player pool is so small. And the second thing we're going to be doing, we're going to be taking chances on sleeper picks if we feel comfortable doing that. Players like Josh Reynolds or Ben Watson's, or players basically that the general public wouldn't know a lot about, but we do. To start this segment, the first game I really want to talk about is this Kansas City Chiefs versus the New England Patriots game. Now, the general public might be fading this game because there's an Arctic storm coming through that's, frankly, it's going to be so cold it's going to freeze everyone's balls off. It's going to be really cold. But honestly, guys, this is not a game we want to fade. It really favors the Kansas City Chiefs, and I'm going to be talking about some of my must-have players from that game. And a lot of my core players are coming from that game, and I'll talk about why. But before we dive into that, let's take a look at DraftKings. Take a look at everyone's price points and get an idea of who we should be targeting and why. Taking a look at the slate, the first thing that really pops out to me is that Michael Thomas is actually the highest priced player, not only in this matchup, but the slate as a whole. Now, Michael Thomas had a phenomenal outing last week. He was one of my players you had to have going against a weak Eagles secondary. But this week, he has a very tough matchup going against the Rams. The Rams secondary has Talib back and Marcus Peters on the other side, and I really think they're going to do their best to limit Michael Thomas and just really hone in on him. So at his price point, he's actually someone I'll be fading this week, as well as Todd Gurley. Now, I don't want to lose you guys. I'm telling you to fade two of the top scoring players in DFS, but I think there's two reasons behind this, guys, all right? First off, the public, they recognize these names. They're going to be playing Michael Thomas and Todd Gurley. Now, the second thing is I just don't think they have the ceiling to match their price point. It's simple as that. Gurley has a very tough matchup as of right now. He's currently questionable. I think he'll be fine. They're just going to limit him for the practice so he's ready for the game. But obviously Gurley has not been himself as late, and that's why C.J. Anderson has been utilized so heavily as of late. So those are the two players with very tough matchups that I'm actually going to fade this week. If there's one player that I have to have, my first must-have for this week, it's Alvin Kamara. If you take a look at the last time he went against the Rams, he had one of his highest scoring outings. He produced 33 fantasy points, and I really think he's in line for a similar output this week. Now, the way you attack the Rams is outside runs, screen passes, and running backs that can catch passes out of the backfield. Now, Kamara just fits this mold to a T, and that's why he's one of my must-haves this week. If we scroll down a little bit more, we see Robert Woods. Now, Robert Woods, he's a good player, and I think the general public will probably be on him pretty heavy this week. But for me, personally, he's just kind of like lukewarm oatmeal. You know, if you put enough sugar on it, it'll probably still taste good, but if you would have warmed it up a little bit more, it would have been a delicious dish. So, Robert Woods in a good matchup. He's someone that I'm kind of meh about right now. He's not someone I'm completely fading because on this slate, there's not going to be a lot of options, guys. So he might be someone we have to consider playing. But if we scroll down a little bit further, a few hundred less, we have Brandon Cooks. Now, I've already done the research, so you can take my word for it. I've looked at the cornerback and wide receiver matchups, and Brandon Cooks just has a phenomenal matchup this week against the secondary. He obviously runs different routes and he gets different coverages than Robert Woods. So I just want to spell that out for you guys why I'm not so high on Robert Woods and I'm really high on Brandon Cooks. Also, if we take a look at Brandon Cooks' last performance against New Orleans, he actually had one of his highest games of the year against New Orleans, and I really think that has to do with the secondary he faced and the routes he runs. Now, if the Rams want to stay in this game against the Saints at home, they're going to have to pass the ball a lot. I don't see that run game being very efficient going against a very tough run defense in the Saints. So look for them to air it out as much as possible, and that primary target, in my eyes, will be Brandon Cooks. So he's someone that I'm targeting. He's one of my must-haves for this week. And for now, we're just going to leave it like that. Another consideration play is Ted Ginn. He's probably going to be lined up against Marcus Peters, and Marcus Peters has been burned on go routes, and Ted Ginn likes to run a lot of go routes. So he could be one of those big play guys that makes a difference in DFS. Someone I'm considering but not locking in. Now the next matchup we're going to take a look at is this Kansas City-New England game. And a lot of the players I'll be targeting are going to be coming from this matchup. And there's a couple reasons behind that. I think that the general public will be off this game because of the weather and their concerns on how the game will be played out. But honestly, I'm not too concerned about it. The Patriots as a whole, offensively, defensively, they're just frankly terrible on the road, and they're coming into Kansas City, and I think it's just a smash spot for the majority of the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes specifically. He's going to be the quarterback I want to lock in. I think he has the most upside, probably next to Drew Brees. They're pretty close right now between Drew Brees at home or Patrick Mahomes at home. So either way, those would be my two options at quarterback, but I'm locking in Patrick Mahomes as one of my must-haves. And if Patrick Mahomes is going to have a good day, and one of the reasons I do think he will, is because this matchup Tyreek Hill has. Tyreek the Freak Hill is just a beast. He's super quick, and he has a great matchup going against the Patriots on the road. Now, I read a stat earlier today, shout out to my man Debro, that when Tyreek Hill faces man coverage, he just absolutely feasts on man coverage. So, considering that the Patriots play the majority of their snaps in man coverage, I think this will be a great matchup for Tyreek Hill. Not to mention how Andy Reid likes to move him around the formation, get him involved in the run game with end arounds and screen passes, and he's just a very creative coach. So I don't think they're going to try to take him out of the game. What I saw last time they played is actually they really focused on Travis Kelce. And I think that's the route they're going to take this week. You limit Travis Kelce, you hone in on him because you're not going to really be able to shadow Tyreek Hill. So Travis Kelce is someone that I'm fading as well. So that brings me down to Julian Edelman. Now, in these playoff games, especially in games where Tom Brady is playing from behind, which I suspect they will, Tom Brady goes to some of his trusted options. And there's three players that he really trusts. Julian Edelman's probably number one, James White's number two, and Rob Gronkowski is probably number three. So out of all the Patriots, those are the three candidates I'm considering targeting. The big question for me is coming down to Sony Michel and James White, and I think that really comes down to game script. Now, if the Patriots were to get a lead, I think they could lean heavily on Sony Michel. Last time they played, Sony Michel had a phenomenal outing, but that was also at home. Like I've said previous times, they really struggle on the road. So the guy I want to lock in is James White. We saw last week he received 15 targets, tying a playoff record with Darren Sproles for the most receptions in a game. Now, this is a game that they won by double digits. They won by 13 points, guys, and he still got 15 targets. He was still heavily utilized in that passing attack, and he's someone I want to target not only for the safety, because regardless of game flow, he'll be involved. If they're behind, well, they're going to have to pass more, James White. If they're ahead, they're still going to have to pass, James White. So he's just someone I like to lock down as a safety valve, someone with plenty of upside, and he's actually relatively cheap at 5,400. So I'm locking him in. On the other side of the ball, I love Damian Williams. If you guys listened to my video last week, Michael Thomas and Damian Williams were two of my must-haves for last week, and if you played both those guys, you probably did pretty well. You're welcome. No, but seriously, guys, Damian Williams, as long as Spencer wears out, he's an absolute lock button for me, and considering there's no news on Spencer Ware's health or him practicing, even if he does play in this game, I'm not worried about it. Damian Williams is the absolute workhorse for the Chiefs moving forward. He's heavily involved in the passing game. He's a good runner. And for that price point, he's someone I can't pass up. So if you guys take a look at what I've established here, this is pretty much going to be the core build for my lineups this week. Now, I'm kind of up in the air on which direction I want to go at the tight end position, because it really comes down to either Rob Gronkowski or Ben Watson. Now, Ben Watson would be kind of a punt play, but it would allow me to get a more elite wide receiver like maybe Julian Edelman or someone along those lines. And it will also differentiate me from the rest of the pack, because probably about 90% of the field will be playing Rob Gronkowski this week, because he's a big name quantity and his price point is so low. So he's someone I might be avoiding as well, depending on how high his ownership is. Now, if his ownership stays pretty low because he hasn't produced as of late, then he's someone I'll consider playing because he has a great matchup and he gets red zone targets. Now, he got basically no targets, one specifically, last game, so it's something to consider and be wary of, but with the price point in this matchup and considering the Patriots will be playing from behind, he's someone I'm considering playing. Now, at defense, for me, there's not going to be a real clear-cut defense to play this week, but for me, the defense that's really standing out is the Chiefs at home. I can't emphasize this enough. The Patriots on the road are terrible. The Chiefs, as of late, playing at home, have been phenomenal. If you look at their DVOA against the run, or if you just watch the Colts game and watch what they did against Marlon Mack and Andrew Luck, they were just phenomenal at home. And I think they have that kind of success again this week against the Patriots. Not to mention, if you get Tyreek Hill to return a punt or kickoff for a touchdown, well, now you're just double dipping, guys. So that's definitely the route I think I'm going to go there at defense. And then I'm still kind of up in the air about these last two positions. So those will be my core builds, and these are the players that you must have for this conference championship week. All right, guys, that's going to pretty much wrap it up for my DFS must-haves for this week. Before I go, I want to talk about some potential showdown captains for you guys. In this Kansas City Patriots game, my number one choice is going to be Tyreek the Freak Hill. I mean, he has the most upside of anyone in that matchup. Number two would be James White. I think he has a solid game, with the Patriots most likely playing from behind for the majority of that game, and he's one of Tom Brady's most trusted options. Not only that, it's going to allow you some salary cap relief. The third option is kind of a contrarian pick, and it's going to help you set you apart from the rest of the pack, if you have the balls to play him. The third option is going to be Rob Gronkowski. I know, guys, Rob Gronkowski has been terrible as of late, but he really has an ideal matchup going against the Kansas City Chiefs. And like I said, the Patriots most likely are going to be playing from behind. So if he gets lucky enough to find the end zone once or even twice, he's a player that can really set you apart from the rest of the pack and give you opportunity to take down that showdown slate. Because once you plug him into the captain spot, you're able to do a lot of different things with your lineup there. Just go ahead and try it out and take a look at what I'm talking about. So he's definitely someone to consider this week. Now, in the Saints-Rams game, it basically comes down to two players for me, and that's Alvin Kamara and Brandon Cooks. I think, frankly, they have the most upside of anyone on that slate, and they have some really ideal matchups. Last time they played, they both really balled out. But if I had to choose, I'm going to go ahead and go with my man, Alvin Mother Kamara. So that's the player I would really lock in, because I think he just absolutely has a monster game and finally gets back on being the player that we're used to having. Just a number one PPR option, and hopefully gets 10 catches out of the backfield and a couple touchdowns for you guys. So as always, I appreciate you guys watching. If you like this DFS content, please support us by smashing that like button and subscribing to the channel. This is going to be probably one of my last DFS videos for the year. I will be covering the Super Bowl. I haven't decided what I want to do for that. If you guys have any suggestions, what you'd like to see for the Super Bowl, please leave it down in the comments section. I do respond to all comments left on these videos. And like I said before, I appreciate you guys watching. I'm your host, Ryan O'Connell, signing out.